Welcome back to another weekly GMBN Tech show.
On the show this week,
we check out the Marin El Roy,
the giant Trance X Advanced,
and the Peaty's versus Chris King tubeless valve stems,
as well as some new tools from Crankbrothers. So first up in the news this week, we have a new bike from Giant. So there is the Giant Trance, which is kind of a staple of Giant's range, and this is the Trance X Advanced Pro 29 or Advanced 29.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah, it is indeed. So there's the Trance, and then a lot of time with Giant's range, you know how Specialized have their Evo range, for instance. The X signifies the slightly more aggressive model. So this one goes up to 135mm rear travel with a 150mm fork, but it is a completely new bike. It's a new frame. It's not just a bolstered up of the same and current version. So it's basically now the carbon version of what was released 6 weeks ago, because they have had the alloy bike out for just a little bit longer than this current one. And it's the same geometry. It still uses the Maestro suspension platform with the same features. So it has a head angle of 65.5 degrees, but that can go up to 0.7 degrees steeper thanks to its flip chip. And the chainstays are 438. It's got quite a steep seat tube angle, and actually it looks almost like what I would term a rain killer, because the Rain, which is Giant's enduro bike, only has 10mm more travel, and it's got quite similar angles, although I think the Rain is a bit slacker. But I think it's really interesting to see Giant, which, because it's such a big company, people often assume they're quite a conservative company, but they kick out bikes like this, which suggest all to the contrary.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think they've actually been on it for several years now. Interesting you say that about being a rain killer. I was thinking something along those lines. I was wondering why you would release a bike like this. That's that good, really. It's that close to one of their big sellers, the Rain. I mean, I guess the Rain probably, you know, only 10mm more travel, but you probably will notice that, and it's probably going to be better for the rider that's perhaps not so astute out on the trail. Someone who's a bit more clumsy, perhaps.
Yeah, yeah, I'll put my hand up there. And it also comes with, in terms of the top line model, it comes with Fox Live. So that's basically real-time suspension adjustment, which is, you know, in the smallest fractions of seconds, and it basically adjusts your compression tune as needed, front and back. And I wonder if with this, you know, SRAM coming out with the AXS and this becoming more popular, we've seen it on, for instance, Pivot's bikes as OE original equipment, I wonder how much longer it will be until this will be across the board. What do you reckon, Doddy?
I don't know, it's really hard to say. I've not ridden the live valve system. I know what it's all about, and the concept's been floating around for a few years now. Of course, like RockShox had something fairly similar a few years back with Lapierre. I think it's called the EI system. But from what I hear about the live valve, it's incredibly refined in the way that it works. You know, it's making adjustments so fast. It's not anything you could ever do with dials and stuff yourself. Yeah, I think it's really cool, but I'm yet to be convinced if it's for sort of every man as a rider. I think feels like a bit more of a race product, but I'm totally not sure. I'm on the fence with this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why it's so interesting, because I would have also earmarked it as a race product. But I think the Trance, because of where it sits at neither the cross-country or enduro, it's, like you said, it's for your everyday riders. It's a real proper trail bike. And it's interesting to see the Fox Live, like you said, considered to be a race-only adage on a bike that is going to be great for everyone. So I think it's really interesting.
Absolutely. I mean, I'd have thought skipping away to e-bikes, it'd be the perfect addition for, you know, a high-end e-bike. It's just, you know, it's obviously not that affordable, the kit at the moment, but it's the perfect thing for adjusting stuff on the fly to give you ground clearance and things to get up stuff. But yeah, maybe we're seeing a bit of a new era coming in. Can't be a bad thing.
Yeah, no, totally.
Cool. Okay, well, something very different from that and very unsophisticated by all accounts is the new Marin El Roy. So this is, I guess you'd call it a progressive hardtail frame. It's made from double-butted chromoly steel, and it's got really quite progressive geometry, which we're starting to see used across the board. I think it's fairly safe to say, but this is a new sort of departure for Marin to make a bike like this. And actually their UK team had quite a hand in this, in the development work and a bit of testing on some of our local ground, as well as in some of the French riding resorts. Now this bike comes in a single spec, and it comes in black sparkle space. This is it on the screen at the moment. And it retails for £2,295. So that's a UK price, obviously. Now, all right, that's a lump of money, but really by all accounts, you're getting quite a lot of bike here. You're getting a decent set of wheels. You're getting Maxxis Assegai tyres in the double down casing, which I think is really telltale for who they're aiming this at. A 1x12 Dior transmission, X-Fusion dropper post, which comes in either 150 or 170 drop, and that directly relates to the sizing of this bike, which is cool. So it comes in two frame sizes, regular and grande, 480 and 510, which I think is extremely progressive given where they've been as a brand in the last few years. Based around 29-inch wheels, it's got investment cast dropouts, which are probably the toughest style of steel dropouts you can get. And it takes its name from a restaurant actually local to their headquarters in Marin County. Apparently they love having a Mexican there, and they wanted to dedicate a bike to it, which I think is a really cool story.
That's a long way to justify a staff discount at a local restaurant.
I'd give them discount.
For the 10% off the coffees, we'll name a bike after you. Well, you've driven a hard bargain, but sure.
But look at the way this thing sits. Like, this thing really is long, low and slack. I don't know which size this is in the image, but they're both pretty lengthy. So 63-degree head angle, 78-degree effective seat angle on there, 435mm chainstays, and then it's got a pretty low BB of 318 as well. And this, from like a mass market brand to be knocking out this looks far more in line with stuff like the privateer bikes that we've been seeing recently. And of course, it's got that Marzocchi Z1 on the front with the Evol spring, as opposed to having the coil spring in there, just to make it a bit more tunable, I think, to the end user. One last thing just on this bike is there's also this version, which is just a one-off. It was done for the Steel is Real demo days. And it's a bit of a, I guess, a bit of a nod back to where Marin came from. It reminds me of their sort of 90s race jerseys with kind of the speckling in there. And it's got some nice detailing like the 86 on that seat stay bridge. But I'm really impressed by them as a brand. You know, I think in the last few years, they've definitely started getting back up there again. There was definitely a bit of a dark patch where there was kind of radio silence for them, which I think would have been a shame because they're one of the original major players, I think. Yeah, totally. And it's so interesting, isn't it, talking about Marin and Giant, like these huge, huge companies. And we're talking about new bikes, and both of them, like for the Giant Trance, the largest are 486 reach. Yeah, and that's really in its lowest setting, so it could actually go up 8mm if you put it into its high mode. And now this Marin Hardtail, and that's, I think, affects it as well. You know, a 63-degree head tube angle as well. You know. Yeah, it's rad, isn't it? That's like a really quite radical frame. Just one thing with a Giant, I don't know if you'll notice or not, but I was wondering if they're bringing their size extra large into Europe, because for quite a while they just didn't, and I could never figure out why. They only seem to bring in the small, medium and larges. But if they don't, it'd be really good to see that, because I think people now are demanding bigger sizes. Yes. Starting to identify that. Might even force their hand a little bit, eh? Yeah, absolutely. Because speaking of kind of mountain biking OGs, we have got Crankbrothers who are releasing some new tools this week, the M13 and the M20. Now, these have always been really, really good tools and certainly fan favourites with mountain bikers because they're versatile and very, very rugged. So the M13, needless to say, has 13 tools in it and actually includes a little case similar to that we've seen on the Toe Peak ones for your spare tyre plugs, so they don't just go drying out or whatever. You know, you can keep them all stored nicely. It comes with all your normal Allen keys, Phillips and flathead screwdrivers, Torx, and it comes in 4 colours for 26 quid. And then you can go to the M20, which has 20 tools, needless to say. And it's same as the M13, but it comes with kind of a full-featured chain tool. And it does pretty much anything, really. It's got spoke wrenches, valve core remover, disc rotor straightener, and an 8mm spanner. And that one is available for £40 UK. And I mean, these tools, like I said, they're fan favourites. They've been around forever, and for good reason, because they're kind of up there with cockroaches, and they're just really, really hard wearing. Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. I've always been a big fan of those, actually. And I know several bike journalist friends who've had the original tools living in the bottom of their bike bags for, well, since I think about 2005, and they're rusty and they're still trucking on because they had those really nice sharp edges on all the Allen keys, which means they're just going to last. They're durable. Well, they say, don't they, that imitation is the best form of flattery. And interestingly enough, I actually saw on Crankbrothers' website, they've actually got a notice out now saying that there are a lot of well, not a lot, but there is some counterfeiting going on from certain websites because they know the Crankbrothers tool is so recognisable. They're trying to, knock off cheap versions of it. So I thought that was really interesting. Who would have thought a mountain bike tool could be counterfeited? Well, do you know what? There's actually a whole other video and a whole discussion about counterfeit stuff in cycling. Now, apparently Specialized have got an entire team of people working with them, and their job is to deal with all the counterfeit stuff that's on the market. I mean, I think you see this stuff mostly in the road world with mega lightweight frames, and it's like, it's just not safe really a lot of the time to buy that stuff. But we'll check out a video of that at some point in the future. We're going to look into that. But now for something completely superficial and just down to nice colours essentially, is the Peaty's range combined with Chris King of tubeless valve stems. So there's 11 different colours that basically completely match in with your Chris King hubs if you're lucky enough to have them. Alternatively, if like me you can't afford Chris King hubs, it's a good way of getting some Chris King stuff on your bike because everyone aspires to have some. Now they're available in 42 and 60mm lengths, so if you've got really deep section rims, or perhaps if you're a roadie or you've got a gravel bike with deep section rims, they can be ideal for you. Now they've got a few really cool things built into them. Now the base, if we start down here just by the little rubber bit that goes into the rim, you see it's got an X profile. This is to make them compatible with all types of tyre inserts now. Now previously, if you were buying a set of tyre inserts to protect your rims when you're riding, you'd have to have a dedicated valve that had an airway through there so that air could get into the tyre. You don't need to with these, which means you can spend less money in the long term if you want to add that sort of thing. Now they do hop-up kits and replaceable internals for these, so you can swap out the valve cores in them and the rubber components. So if you're swapping it up to a new set of wheels or a new bike perhaps, you can move these across even if the rubber stuff has started gunking up and getting perished. Now it's quite cool because they work on a valves for life principle as well. So there's warranties for life. Obviously there are some clauses in this, but they want to keep you in the same valves if possible unless there's any faults with them. And finally, they've got these cool little caps on the top. So as well as having a valve core remover on them, they also have a spoke key on the other one now. And I just think that's awesome. It's
amazing.
Really good set. I mean, I've got to say, the nerd in me loves the little service kit. So you get 2 O-rings, 2 valve cores, which are actually smoke grey instead of silver, which is nice. And then the little conical rubber inserts on them. I think that's great because you can just keep your valve cores going for a lot longer. It's too easy just to throw another set on. We don't want to just be wasting stuff. But there you go, 11 different colours. There's a few of them flashing by on screen now.
No, fantastic, because there's no reason you should ever actually have to, you should be able to get one set of tubeless valves forever. It's not as if like standards change or anything like that. Yeah, but the reality of it is with certain sealants, of course, they're going to gunk up after a while, and however much you can clean them out. But unfortunately, the valve cores themselves do get clogged up and stop working. So yeah, nice one to Peaty's for continuing that. Now, I don't know about you, I spend a lot of time on Instagram flicking around, seeing who's doing what on the bike scene, and spotted some pretty cool stuff recently. Now, I was looking on the Marin Bikes Instagram page just for a bit more information on that really cool hardtail, and I actually spotted these, which is, it's not a mountain bike, I know, give me some slack here, but it's called the Larkspur. It's named after Larkspur in Marin County. And it's somewhere in between, I'd say, a beach cruiser and an urban bike. It comes with a 1x system on there. You've got a dropper post, so I guess it's not really for getting rad on. It just means that lots of different height people can get on the bike. I think also get the saddle to a comfortable height. If you had this bike, for a few, maybe to nip between bars, it's easier to keep your balance with the saddle low. So you can get there with efficiency than when you're just closing one eye and try not to count double white lines. You can get home as well. Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's exactly what this bike looks like. Blaze around town, pop to the pub, down the shops. I think it looks really cool. Yeah. And it definitely looks quite classic. What do you guys think? Let us know. Do you like a beach cruiser? Have you got a pub bike? Have you got an old rat bike, perhaps? If you have, we'd love to see them. Send us some photos. And in the completely opposite direction, Jeff Stieber, who is Mr. Intense Bicycles to you and I, he always posts really cool stuff on his Instagram. So if you don't follow him, his handle is right there at the bottom of the screen. But check this shot out. So it's a little tiny grab of the 2021 primer, and it comes in this Ferrari red. Well, it comes in a red that's very similar to a Ferrari red. I shouldn't say that because it's probably a patented colour. Lawyers at the door. Absolutely, yeah. But look at the colours of this thing. It just looks amazing. And he's even got a little screen grab of the car there. Now, I can't work out what it is. It looks like a 375 Plus or one of those weird sort of single-seat Le Mans cars. But the inside, like the interior leather of the car, almost perfectly matches the Olin shock and the coil spring on it. It just looks really classy. I just wanted to share that because I thought it was cool. It does look great. And actually something I spotted on Instagram this week is a company we've mentioned a couple of times. And I'm pretty sure then I butchered the name as well. I think it's Acto Thief, but I always say Acto 5, but I think it's Acto Thief. And it was this, super bespoke, very small frame manufacturer based in Europe. And they had this, jewel-worthy CNC'd rear end with a steel front end. But now they're moving to the CNC'd front end as well. So kind of much like the Polar Stamina. And I mean, it just looks amazing. So they've kept the same rear end, but they've got different shock mounting and slightly revised geometry on the front end. And what looked initially like just a real passion project, there's now news that these bikes, after some more testing and refinement, will hopefully be available to the public in 2021. And I mean, they look amazing, don't they?
It really does. You know, I'd not seen the finished item like that. I'm glad you shared that. I did see a few weeks back or a few posts back, they, you know, sharing some details of the frames being machined and just small details of it. And so I was thinking, like, what are they up to? But yeah, that's mega cool. So, am I right in thinking the previous bike had an alloy rear end, but it had a steel front end?
Exactly that. Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's just something about, you know, that CNC'd finish that just screams like hyperbike.
Yeah,
God,
yeah,
like
definitely.
Those Polars, when you see them in the flesh, and I assume it'll be the same with this, they are just like, they're arresting to look at. And even people that perhaps aren't mountain bikers or don't know that much about it will be like, oh my God, that is something special. It's a fantastic look.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And yeah, we'd actually love to know a bit more about those bikes. So I think we need to get in touch with Acto Thief. Acto Thief? Yeah,
Acto Thief.
Acto 5 and another. Awesome stuff. Yeah, good spot. Let us know if you see anything cool out there on Instagram that you think we need to know about, and so we can reach out to them.
Now it is time for the tech quiz. So, this week's questions. The first one is, earlier on we talked about that new Trance Advanced X, but what year did the giant Trance first come out? So what year did the giant Trance first come out? Secondly, we also talked about the new Marin. Now the Marin bike's logo is a bear and a star, but why would that be and where did they draw inspiration from? And the last question, how did the Crankbrothers company get its name? So you'll have to tune in later on to get the answers.
Okay, now it's time for Top Mods. Now this is usually part of the show where we check out loads of cool stuff you've been doing to your bikes to make them better. Now don't forget, anything counts. You could just be changing a set of tyres, you could be putting some old bar ends on, you could be going back in time. Literally anything you change on your bike, we want to know about it. We want to know why you put that thing on. Even if you homemade it yourself, all of the parts of the process, send us a little video on your phone or send us some photos and we'll put you on the show because we want to celebrate making your own bike a little bit different from all the rest. Now there's a link at the bottom of the screen and there's a better one in the description. But this week, I wanted to show you something that was sent to me by a friend who runs a suspension tuning company. His name's Finn and it's full factory suspension. Now he was sent a pair of cheap suspension forks to do a service on, but the problem with these is that they had a cartridge system on the inside and for some reason you couldn't get it apart and it was a bit of a problem. And he wanted to give them some good rebound damping adjustment because they were just topping out so fast that if you look at this little video clip, you can see as he compresses them on the floor, they're actually jumping back off the floor. Now he really wanted to do a good job on his forks and make them feel as good as possible. So he thought back to how the old Marzocchi Z1 bombers used to work, which basically, if you don't know, they had a core spring in both legs and they had an open oil bath damping system. So they essentially had the lower legs full of oil, which is the key to why they worked so well, because that oil would be consistently and constantly lubricating the internals of the fork. Now, anyone that remembers the Z1 bomber when it first came out, they'll tell you just how incredible they were compared to everything on the market, including all the professional stuff that's been used by the racers that was modified and stuff by the pro mechanics. Z1 bombers off the shelf were unbelievable. And it's actually not that uncommon to find a set these days that have never been serviced that are still going. But anyway, so Finn had this great idea. He was like, well, how on earth can I get this damper to work? And just thought, let's just turn them into a set of bombers. So he drilled out the cartridge. So you think on the inside of the cartridge, it still just can have basically a piston and it's going to have a load of shims and stuff that's supposed to be pulling back and forward through the oil. Except there was no oil in there where it obviously leaked over time. Couldn't undo the cartridge, so the best way around it, drill some holes into that cartridge, fill the lower leg up with oil, use some seals and crush washers to seal off that bottom, and then bingo, it's going to work just like it's supposed to in the first place, except it's got more oil in it. It's just going to work better for longer. Just a bit messier to set up. And this is the end result, and you can see him just turning that rebound dial there. You can see it's a lot slower coming back up, and even more slower when he turns that dial. I think that is one of the coolest top mods I've ever seen. And actually, I think it's given me a great idea for a video. So I'm going to try and find some similar old forks like this and show you how to do it, because I reckon you could pick up a set of forks like that for about 50 quid second hand these days. And you could probably do that with a bunch of other hacks and make them feel pretty good. Awesome idea there from Full Factory Suspension. In fact, you should give him a follow over on Instagram. He's a bit of a MacGyver when it comes to fettling weird stuff from bikes. He thinks very differently to the normal top modder out there, but awesome stuff. But if you've got any great top mods yourselves, don't forget to get involved, and we're going to do a crammed version next time. Okay, now it's time for Rewind. This is where we go back in time to celebrate where mountain biking has come from and all that tech and the innovations and stuff we're riding now, just to see how we got there. Now, earlier in the news, we reported on the new Marin bike, the hardtail made from steel called the El Roy. Now, when I was looking into that, I noticed a really cool video on their website, and I couldn't believe I hadn't seen it before. So there's a clip of the video just flying past on screen at the moment. And basically, Matt Jones, who is a UK Red Bull sponsored athlete, completely amazing rider, but he's never been to Marin County. He's never even ridden his bike in California. So he went back there, he rides for Marin bikes. He went to see them, basically make this video. It's super cool. Just check it out. Basically, he gets to see the original places where these bikes were designed in Marin County. That's where the name on the down tube comes from. Made in California, one of the original mass market bike brands, designed by Bob Buckley. I think they founded it in 1986, so it's a pretty old brand by all accounts, and a really cool video. There's some good retro stuff in there, and even seeing Matt Jones step outside his comfort zone and look at one of the old Team FRS bikes. So this was their full suspension bike, one of their early ones. And it was actually a Doug Bradbury design, so he's responsible for designing the Manitou suspension fork. Now, he made a Manitou suspension bike, in fact, like the one you can see on screen, and it essentially had a set of Manitou suspension forks on the rear. Now, when this came out, it was such an effective design because it had just a single low pivot. It was very active, wasn't really affected by chain forces. It did have a little bit of bob because of the way that you would pedal the bike, but the suspension actually worked really well. So well, in fact, the Marin bikes wanted to use a similar design. So Matt actually got to ride one, and the bike is actually older than he is, which is crazy if you think about it. Now, I urge any of you to go and visit Marin County if you ever have the chance. If you're ever in North California, in the San Francisco Bay Area, you really should go to Fairfax and visit the Marin Museum of Bicycling. Now, this place is super cool. There's loads of fascinating stuff in there to learn about bikes, and there's some stuff whizzing by on screen. But it's essentially celebrating where mountain biking started. Now, arguably this is the place where it started, and the very first mountain bike race was called Repack. In fact, I've got a poster behind me there, signed by Charlie Kelly and Joe Breeze. They're two of the founding fathers alongside Gary Fisher. Now, they did a race there called Repack. The first mountain bike race was a downhill race, and it was known as Repack because at the end of the run, they'd have to repack their hubs with grease because it would burn off all the grease on the way, because they were using basically hub brakes on their bikes. It's got so much history there, it's super cool, and actually in the town of Fairfax itself, which is a super cool town, by the way, very expensive, mind, but very cool. There's also the trophies and the sort of the monuments in the street itself. So there's some shots on screen that I took when I visited the place, and I was just mesmerised looking at the artwork that's gone into this. Now you can see some times that some of the racers have put at Repack there, some details of some of the early riders and racers and innovators of the sport. It's just really cool. It's a bit of a shrine, I guess you'd call it, but mega cool stuff. Now, the link to the Marin video that I've just told you about, it's about 15 minutes long, so we haven't got time to show you the whole thing now. It's going to be underneath this video, so I urge you to watch it. It is really cool, and actually it will teach you a little bit about Marin bikes that you might not know. They're a very cool brand, and they're definitely worth having a look at. But that's it for Rewind this week. I just wanted to show you something we've actually been watching ourselves and enjoying here at GMBN Tech. But make sure you get your entries in for next week's show. Now, I want to see some really cool old stuff. I've been looking on our uploader, and there's plenty of good stuff on there, but I want to see it full to the hilt. So the link to our uploader is right there. And also there's links to all of the uploader stuff in the description underneath. They're a bit easier because you can just click on them and it'll take you straight through. But that's it for now. See you later.
So now it is time for the quiz answers. So the answer to the first question: what year did the giant Trance first come out? And it was 2005. So a decade and a half ago now. And that first one, it does look like a slightly different beast. It just shows the different direction that trail bikes have gone in. Now, the second question, what inspired the Marin logo? Well, it is of course based on the Californian state flag with the bear and the star. And the final question, how did Crankbrothers get its name? Well, it's a combination of the names of its founders, Carl, and I hope I say this right, Carl Weinfolder and Frank Hermanson. The rumor is that people kept mixing up Carl and Frank, so they just decided to combine them into Crank, and the rest, as they say, is history. Now, thank you very much for watching this week's GMBN Tech Show. I really hope you enjoyed it, and please don't forget to like and subscribe to help support the channel. Thanks guys, and we'll see you next time.